Hey, David, welcome to the Everyday Mystic.
Hi, Corissa.
Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Oh, I'm really excited. Thanks for inviting me on.
Your last name is interesting, and I'm so glad I asked you how to pronounce it. What's the origin?
It's Ukrainian.
Are you far removed from Ukraine as far as your life? When did you come to the States, or when did your family come here? Or you're not in the States. Sorry, you're in Canada.
Yeah, I'm in Canada. My version of grandma, which is Baba, and my version of grandpa, which is Dita. So my Baba and Dita, who are my dad's parents, they came with their family to Canada. It was in the early 1900s. And I don't really have a strong cultural connection outside of the experience of our family coming together because they had a lot of kids, and then they had a lot of kids. So I had a lot of cousins, and we would get together for Ukrainian Christmas and Ukrainian Easter and have these grand Ukrainian feasts, which were fantastic and very memorable. I have a lot of memories, like visual memories of that time of my life, but we didn't learn Ukrainian, or we didn't learn a lot about the culture. We just had that family experience.
It's almost a blight of our generation, any of us that moved here or were moved here to the Americas. It's like those countries of origin, cultures of origin were stripped away. I was adopted, so my family that I was raised with were American, but my father was French Canadian, and his parents were from Quebec, and they spoke French at home, but they didn't teach it to him, or they didn't make him speak French. So of course, among all of his American friends growing up in the 50s and 60s in the United States, it all went away. And then I come to them, and my mom and dad, and my Korean was all lost because they don't speak Korean. They don't know anything about Korea. So all of that was lost. And what they were told when I was adopted, and that was in the 70s, was to just integrate her. Just, give her American name, speak to her in English, just make her American. And that's how she's going to do best here. You could, look at that in a couple different ways, of course. I mean, I feel like I have benefited from that for sure. But you think about what's lost in those cultural connections, whether it's the language or the food or the customs or just even memories, knowledge of heritage. It's interesting that a lot of families just kind of want to erase that and like, nope, you're Canadian now. You're American now.
Yeah, I feel like I'm missing something. Like it took until my 40s and 50s to make me feel like I missed an opportunity. Like I never sat down with my Baba and Jeet and asked them about what their life was like when they arrived in Canada. Because I so deeply want that right now. I want to be able to sit with them and talk to them about that because their lives were so, so different. And also just memories of what they brought, the memories and the cultural items that they arrived with and the belief systems, all of that. I really think I missed something, but you can't go back in time and live with regret. So you gotta move on.
Are you researching or doing any of your own investigation of your Ukrainian heritage? Like, have you gone there and visited at all?
I have not gone there.
Yeah.
But I have conversations occasionally with my dad. When questions come up, I'll ask him.
That's great. Well, at least you've got somebody who's still connected in that way. I went back to Korea actually for my honeymoon. My husband and I went there and to Japan and got to experience it because I was 3 years old when I left, but young enough that I don't remember anything. So going there felt like being there for the first time. And it was incredible to experience that country and things that I don't feel culturally connected to, but learning about it and feeling a affinity to it. The first time I ever had Korean food, and this was way before I visited Korea. This was when I, lived in San Francisco, and I just took to it immediately. So it's like, even though we don't have memories of a place ourselves or our spirits, I think can carry those memories very strongly. And then there's the whole thing of past lives, if you believe in that, and where we may have lived before in past lives. And some people have such strong affinities to a past life that they may not feel comfortable in their country of origin. But as soon as they go to Ukraine or they go to Bolivia or somewhere, they're like, oh, I'm home. Feel that so deeply. So I think that's interesting about us as human beings is that we're raised in certain places and with certain customs, language, food, etc. And our spirits can call us to other places. It's just an interesting aspect of our human experience, don't you think?
Oh yeah, and I have a bit of a self-analytical brain, and when I think about going to Ukraine or when I meet people who are from Ukraine, I automatically feel warmth. It's like in my heart.
Mhm.
And I don't, when I talk about being self-analytical, I wonder automatically if that's because I think I should feel that way or because it's in my DNA. Like, nature nurture, I don't really know exactly what is happening, but yeah, it does certainly feel like there's a deeper, more ancient connection
Mm.
to the culture of Ukraine. And then on my mom's side, it would be Norway. And I've
Yeah.
I've definitely wanted to go to both places. I just
We were
haven't.
talking before we hit record about travel and
Mm.
about what my family's about to go do, which is to essentially travel, live. I don't know what to call it. I mean, most people call it being nomadic. I don't know if I would classify it as that. I guess it's just going and living in places. And then when we're done living there, we're going to go live in another place. We were talking about that before we hit record and how the move like this for maybe someone like you and I is exhilarating because we want to go explore culture and we feel drawn to places and we're following, this spiritual calling potentially. But we also have kids. And my son, who's 13, is struggling with this a bit of us leaving here and going off on this adventure. It's a adventure that we don't know where it's going to lead to, just like life. No one knows where life is going to lead, even when you do just stay in one place. So we're just kind of being more deliberate with how we're going to go live that life. But you brought up to me the fact that you've got teenage kids as well, and that they would feel extremely uprooted by something like this. And my son, I think, is experiencing what may even be looked at as anxiety around this move, around what does this mean? I'm never going to see these people again, never going to talk to these people again, never have any connection to these people or this place. And it's starting to manifest as that in him. And I know that's a lot of the work that you do. Yes, you're the founder of Do Yoga With Me, but you're also deeply working in this space of helping people with anxiety. Is that something that you see with clients, that changes in their day to day or their environments or things like this can be challenging and be something that would trigger anxiety? And if so, how do you help your clients manage that?
Yeah, uncertainty is a hard thing to deal with when you're living with chronic anxiety. I started teaching yoga about 25 years ago, and I just naturally started to draw people in who wanted a little bit more of a deeper inner experience because they were struggling. And a lot of the people just happened to be people living with high levels of chronic anxiety, but were very functional in life. They had a job, they had families, they had kids, they had dependents. They had a lot that they had to do in an average day, but they were just managing that anxiety. So mentally, emotionally, physically, they were tense, they were exhausted, they had a constant daily sense of heaviness and overthinking everything and racing mind and difficulties sleeping and this deep desire to keep it all together. And also self-judgment, that they weren't the people that they thought they should be to their colleagues, to their family, and they would arrive in bed at night feeling like dead tired, and they would wake up not rested, and they would have to do it over again. So that this cycle of chronic anxiety is debilitating for some, and a lot of people just keep the turmoil on the inside like I did for 30 years, and you try to look happy on the outside. And now you talk about travel. I told you the story of going to Southern Africa when I was 22. And I did that as a solo journey. And the main reason was because I just feel like I needed a drastic change in my life because I had debilitating depression and anxiety, and I had found it hard to get out in the morning, and I needed a drastic change from my current living situation. So when you describe a disruption to your daily life, a disconnection from what I think of for my children. It would be disruptive. It would obviously, you'd sever the social connections, or not sever, but you would make it hard because you're not with them physically anymore. And I would think that you would need a really strong emotional connection with your parents in order to feel safe in doing that. And so that is what happened for me when I left. I felt a complete cut from my day-to-day existence. And because there was no internet back then, there was no connection. Like, I would sometimes phone, but mostly it was by writing letters. And I would mail the letter and they would receive it 2 to 3 weeks later.
Right.
And then a month and a half later, I'd get a letter back from them. But when I came back, I was a completely different person. So what I think you're seeking in that new experience as a life traveler is like my experience with everything I owned in my backpack. And so you just take what you've got with you. And that experience alone is amazing. It's so amazing to do that. And then also, you are constantly open to your moment-to-moment experience, to opportunities. You're even kind of aware of the dangers because everything is more uncertain. And so I just found myself living in the moment. I found myself being fascinated by every day. And also, I was having these completely new cultural experiences that were just breaking me open. Like my heart was getting broken open. My understanding of life and culture and the possibilities of who I could be and what kind of life I could live were just radically changed through that experience.
It's so beautiful. And through it, you saying you came back a new version of you, or as someone who may not have even be able to relate to that old version of you, did the experience itself lessen the anxiety, the depression, and that debilitating feeling? How did you navigate that when you returned?
Well, to be able to describe that, I need to describe the actual experience of leaving, because my first reality was that I felt desperately alone. When you leave solo to a country where you don't know anybody and the culture is not familiar to you, like I felt by myself. And so in a way, I kind of relate this to, I've done a few meditation retreats that were silent, and we were meditating 11 hours a day, and we weren't allowed to do anything but meditate. And both of them make you face the feelings on the inside. It made me feel the discomfort, the loneliness, the tension, the anxiety, made me like remember things from my past that I had been holding on to, the struggle, the turmoil on the inside, and the boredom. And so because I was faced with that, I sat with it a lot. I spent hours and days and weeks and months sitting with that feeling in a way that, I really wanted to understand why it was there, because I didn't want to suffer anymore. So that was a 6-month trip. And I had so many transformative moments, epiphanies that made me realize, wow, that's what I've been doing my whole life, and it's self-destructive. Or, wow, that's the pattern that I've been living through. That's how I've been reacting to my anxiety. And basically, my whole life I've been empowering my anxiety rather than understanding it and accepting it.
Yeah.
So when I got back, the reason why I felt so different was because I had gone through that experience for 6 long months, and I felt stronger. I felt more capable of not reacting to the anxiety in a negative way, not judging myself immediately, and responding with more curiosity, self-acceptance, and self-love.
When you were in Africa and experiencing your inner world, this invitation to actually examine all of these unexamined aspects of you and all of this stuff that you had either stuffed away or hid away or just had not faced yet in your first 22 years, in the excavating process of this, did you see something more than the collection of anxieties or issues? What was revealed there outside of well, yeah, that thing's been hiding itself in me. Did you see what was beneath all of that? Did that become clear in that 6 months?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I guess you see it all. You see the ugliness, you see the beauty, and how I was living with all of that. A lot of anger, a lot of repressed emotion. Like I had spent much of my younger years feeling like I wasn't really understood or heard, or like I didn't feel like I fit in very well. And so a lot of the feelings that had been repressed over those 22 years, that's what I felt every day. And yeah, so I know this is cliche, but really the experience was learning how to love myself.
Yeah. It's one of those simple and most profound rites of passage that we can go through. And it is all of the most simple things in this life, whether it is breathing correctly or understanding how to love ourselves or feeling a feeling, which doesn't sound all that difficult. Oh, just feel it. But we know it is. We know how difficult it
Mhm.
can be to feel something when it's painful to do so, or it brings up all this other stuff. And so it's all the simplest things in life that can be the hardest to do. But then once we actually get to experience it and learn it and get the benefit from it, then it's like the floodgates open to that experience. You want more. You don't want that to end. And I think just the momentum of that makes it an easier road than fighting ourselves.
Yeah, and I think the more that you do that, at least this is my experience, the more you're in that state of mind, the more you can start to witness for yourself what healing is. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
like there are so many subtle ways of responding or feeling or being in relationship with the things that feel painful. And when you're sitting with the pain and you're being very watchful and you're not trying to fix it, you're not trying to think your way through it, but you're just sticking with the somatic sensation of that experience. That's when you are truly understanding how to heal yourself. And I continued on that journey because I came back from South Africa and I didn't consider myself healed by any means. I felt I was different, but I still had this chronic anxiety that I still didn't really understand how to not feel it every day. So I explored all of these, some of them were quite harsh, some of them were just simple approaches, but I kept trying to understand why it was there and how I could make it go away because I didn't want it anymore. And I told you earlier that I did a meditation retreat. I did 3 silent meditation retreats. They were 10 days long, meditating for 11 hours a day, and you couldn't talk to anybody or do anything else. Couldn't read a book, couldn't listen to music. It was just all about being with your feelings and meditating. And all of it was about sensation. You start by focusing the mind, and then all day you're scanning your body part by part, feeling sensation, being non-reactive, feeling sensation, being non-reactive. And I had some of the greatest epiphanies in that experience as well, because I would realize that simple practice of being present and feeling sensation teaches you an enormous amount about the nature of all of the stuff that comes up. It's kind of difficult to describe without being in that experience, but it has all of the feelings that you have in your body have a life, and they come from a source. They come from memories, or they come from trauma. There's something that put it there, and so that stuff will come up with it. And being with it without reaction is the greatest way to learn about how to live with the harder stuff in your life.
And as grueling as meditating for 11 hours might sound to some people, it also might sound stupidly easy to some people too. Well, you just sat there for 11 hours and did nothing. That must have been pretty amazing, right? To get to do nothing all day. So it's always perspective on and intention too, right? We get to live these experiences and go into it with a certain intention and know that in this experience of my time, and I'm sure you had incredible guidance during these retreats, to be able to witness and be able to be with yourself and be able to let go and zoom out and do everything that you did rather than just be with something at the surface. And I think when people look at maybe an experience like that and go, oh, yeah, well, that must have been nice to lay there for 11 hours. I'd pay, millions of dollars to be able to do that. Coming from that perspective, it's an interesting juxtaposition to say, yes, some people need stillness so much that would seem like the greatest luxury in the world. But you're in there in that stillness, working really hard in a still way. So there's so much a paradox going on there. And even us comparing world traveling or going on these adventures around the world in foreign cultures to meditation, those two things seem vastly opposed, so different. But it is that what you carry through in your intention of going within, that's the thread that connects those. Or it's the fact that those experiences push you within. And you may not even intend that, but it's like they do that. They focus you in because now all the familiarity's gone. All of the comforts are gone. All of the things maybe that you had relied on to use as crutches or ways to distract yourself from anxiety or addiction or anything are gone. Now we're like left with ourselves and all the stuff that's going on in here. So that is interesting to look at those two things as so similar in what they can do, and yet they're so different. And I think this is great for listeners to hear because there are so many paths to home and back to ourselves.
One of the things I've been the most fascinated by in one of my anxiety programs is that I ask people to do nothing for 10 minutes. And I actually describe what I mean by that. I'm like, it doesn't mean that you're like, whatever, walking around the house and doing nothing. I mean, you are somewhere by yourself, you're undistracted, you are still, and you're asking yourself very intentionally, how do I do nothing? How do I do nothing? Actually doing nothing in your entire being. Like you're not thinking, you're not needing to be somewhere else. You're like feeling all of that. And so most common responses I get are that I lasted 30 seconds. I cannot do this. I cannot sit still and do nothing. I don't even know what it means. Like, what do you mean by that I do nothing? I get bored automatically and I have to move. I have to get up and I have to do something. And so it is really hard to learn to do it. I remember after a few days of sitting for 11 hours a day, it took me about 3 days to finally settle in so that at the beginning of my meditation, I didn't feel this enormous pressure and loud voice to go do something. Like, get up, get up, get up, go do something. You have to move. I would sit down and I would settle, and suddenly I could start to feel like, wow, like I can actually relax and my mind becomes calm and my nervous system becomes calm and I can settle in and I can stay and I don't have to fight to get there so much. I think everybody experiences this. I think everybody has a crazy busy mind. And once you start to pay attention, it kind of freaks you out because your mind is just in another place so much of the day.
A great way to get people into that meditative state and start to learn that, start to feel that, start to know it's not about not knowing how to meditate or not being good at meditating. It's about just getting comfortable in stillness. And that's a practice. If it's 30 seconds the first time, amazing. And then you drop down, it's only 10 the next time, still amazing. You're still progressing in the doing of that and in the experiencing of that unfolding in your body and in your life. We know as people who benefit from meditation, how it is like the number one way to connect to self, source, to our inner truth and power, to live as a spiritual being on this earth. It's got countless benefits. We know this, having done it and experienced it. But I was also one of those people, and it sounds like you were too, right? I was one of those people who used to say, I can't meditate. Oh, I can't meditate. Because I'm a busy bee. And until I really wanted to meditate, I would make those excuses all the time around why I couldn't. So a deep desire to get still was what led me to it. And I know for some people, life will just create those moments as well for stillness. It could come in the form of an accident, and then you have to lay around for a while recovering from, or a disease that you might be put down for the count. So it's interesting how life always serves up these opportunities or these invitations for us to welcome that in if we want. And if we don't, then it passes and then another invitation will come another time. So when we think of life as these invitations, inviting us in to grow or to understand ourselves better or to reconnect to the creator and then therefore our own creative power. What have been those invitations for you outside of anxiety?
Introduction to yoga is a great example. I was living in Saskatoon, and at the time I had injured my lower back a number of times and my anxiety was getting really bad, and I just saw a poster for a yoga class on a hydro pole. There was my invitation. It was my first yoga experience, and I got, a certain amount of relief in that first class. And that was the first step on the path that I have lived my whole life. Another great example was I found another class in Victoria in a similar way, and it was a men's yoga class. It was very focused on breath work, like a lot of powerful pranayama and some ancient yogic strength training. It was very unique. But I met who is now my best friend. I met a fellow there, and we would, after class, go for a walk and talk. And I just remember for the first time in my life meeting someone who was genuinely curious about my personal experience and my state of mind. And he would ask questions in a way that was clear that he thought about these things a lot in relation to himself. I had never felt open enough with anyone to be able to describe what I was going through because it was too embarrassing to me. And I thought I was the only one. And I just didn't want to burden people with these thoughts, even though I desperately wanted to share them. And he made me feel safe. I would start talking about the tension and the pain and how it's always there. And I remember him asking me, have you ever asked your anxiety why it's there? It sounds like ridiculously simple, and it actually brings up emotions right now. It sounds ridiculously simple, and how could I not do that? So that was my immediate reaction. You can do that? Like, I can actually do that with my anxiety. And so I started doing that, and I started bringing more curiosity into my daily life. Like, why do I feel this way now? What role am I playing? That was one of the biggest steps I ever took. What role am I playing in the way that I feel every day? And so I become more mindful of that and challenge myself a little bit more. Because as you said, I think you referenced earlier, meditation being a great roadblock for people. I think the second one is not believing that you can actually create positive change for yourself. And that's where I was. Like, I was like, this is me. I'm stuck. This is the way I was born. This is a mental illness that I was born with. I have no way to get out of it. So I did not believe that I could change. And so once I started to developing that curiosity and self-compassion, that was huge for me.
So huge to meet somebody who could mirror that to you, ask you those questions, invite the curiosity. And it's certainly not a coincidence that you did meet that person to lead you in this way. And I'm sure you've led him in so many ways. And that's such a beautiful thing about life. When we do step out of the comfort zones, I think we can wither and die and not evolve, not change, not grow if we stay within that comfort zone so arrestingly that we allow then whatever it is, anxiety, depression, fear, worthiness issues, etc., to just consume us. But if we get curious, as you said, to see what else is out there, we get the breadcrumbs. We get all of the opportunities that are presented to us to go in, find the answers, seek the solutions, discover ourselves. And it all just starts to present itself with each step you take. And so for someone like you who had what sounds like a debilitating anxiety, to just take those steps to actually get up and move in a direction, admirable and amazing. that that you did what you needed to get yourself at least into a situation that was out of that comfort zone. It might be in the fear zone, but it's at least a progress towards somewhere else. And I think that's really important for people to hear who may feel stuck in some aspect of their life. It may not be anxiety or some type of mental condition. Maybe it's that they feel stuck in their job, or they feel stuck in a relationship, or they're stuck in their town. This doesn't feel like me. It's not reflecting my truth and who I am. It's when we feel stuck, the number one thing we can do is move ourselves in some way. Tiny step here, choose something different. It doesn't have to be as extreme as what you did, where you just left the continent and went solo to South Africa. I did the same thing. I went and lived for a year in my 20s in New Zealand, and same thing, desperate. I was desperate. I didn't want to live anymore. I had to do something, and I did a big thing. But it doesn't have to be big things, right? They can be little things like go to a class, go talk to that person, go in a different direction on the way home than you normally do. And there's God. There's your life presenting itself in a new way and on that path home. It's just so beautiful how all these paths that we've talked about all do essentially lead back to that home, that home place.
Yeah, and those are all great things. I would add to that, create connection.
Yeah.
Because one of the common stories that I hear from people who are living with chronic anxiety is they don't share it with anyone. And so, of course, if you're keeping it to yourself, you talk about the invitations. I mean, when you're open to all possibilities every day of your life, you'll probably get 50 invitations to learn something every day. But if you're not open and you're not in that open frame of mind and willing to actually talk about how you're feeling, then the opportunities will be limited.
Mm-hmm.
So creating connection, and I totally get the fear around this. I felt a lot of fear around sharing those deeper emotions and pain in my life too, but you will find there will be some moments that it will fail. You share it with someone and they just kind of go on describing what their life is like, and that's okay. But you will find like-minded people. You will find your tribe. That will happen. It might be 1 out of 10, but it is absolutely worth it to go through that process and find those people that you can connect with and rely on and depend on, and vice versa, that you can help them. I mean, that's what life is all about.
I feel like more people than ever are suffering from anxiety. More kids, more teens, more people across all age groups. It seems like it's on the rise. So is that something that you see as, wow, my life just perfectly set me up to be able to help in this time and space we're living in right now?
Yeah, I feel like my life experience kind of did it for me. I had a very visceral experience of anxiety, and then I had 3 decades of experimenting with a variety of different approaches, whether it was holotropic breath work or psychedelics or yoga or hot cold therapy or travel, and these deeper experiences which taught me so much about how to create a daily relationship with your anxiety. So yes, I feel like my life path has basically led me to this moment where I am ready to help people get through their experiences with anxiety. The last 10 years has been looking into research on anxiety and really understanding how the ancient practices are supported by modern research today. And it's mind-blowing how much they're learning, how much we are learning as a culture. So yes, that is currently my life path.
Well, it's a beautiful path, and one that's greatly needed to be walked and to be laid with the gold that you discovered along all of your decades of experimentation. I mean, you collected all of these incredible gifts through that, it sounds like, and to be able to offer those up to those that are suffering now and offer them new ways, maybe a shorter path, maybe just a path in general on a way out I'm so happy that people have you as a resource to connect to in these times. I know that you said you don't work with kids, but certainly I would imagine parents with children who have anxiety probably also suffer from some anxiety as well. To be able to connect to not the one-stop shop way of dealing with anxiety, which is typically a medication, to be able to actually get into a relationship with it, commune with it, have ritual with it, potentially be able to learn about yourself through it, sounds like such a much more enriching way of approaching that.
Yeah, the last article I wrote was about the epidemic nature of anxiety. It discusses what age and what particular groups it's affecting the most and why, and how technology is playing a role. So I get it, man. Like, our teens, especially right now, are living at a time where it is a grand experiment. What having a machine in your pocket, a tiny machine in your pocket that does everything for you, how that's going to impact mental health. And then you add social media to that. To me, it's quite scary, and it's important to continue these healthy conversations with our kids as they go through it.
Yeah, and to not chalk it up as just, oh yeah, everyone has it and I've got one and I'm not anxious, to not be so flippant about it. It's a powerful, powerful potential drug. Not a drug for everybody, but it's a powerful one when used or consumed in that way. So absolutely should be, I think, at the top of every conversation for people who have kids or want to bring kids into this world. How can people connect to you and the work that you're doing and get your beautiful magic?
Oh, so the best way is on my website, davidprocyshyn.com. Should I spell my last name, or will you probably put it
I'll
in
put
the show
that
notes?
link, yeah, so people don't have to stumble around those letters. I'll just put the link
Yes.
right in the show notes.
Yeah, my Ukrainian last name, it has two Y's in it, so it's not a simple spelling. And as you said earlier, I am the founder of Do Yoga With Me, doyogawithme.com, so you can find me there as well.
Before we leave today, what would be your number one piece of advice, or whatever is most on your heart right now, to share with somebody as maybe their first step out from under that grip of anxiety, something that they could do or think about or try, that you'd want to leave with them today?
Can I say two things?
Yes.
Okay, so number one, as we said earlier, one of the greatest barriers is actually being able to sit and be still and learn how to meditate. One of the greatest ways, especially for someone who's busy and only has 10 minutes a day, to overcome that is to learn what is called rapid breathing techniques. I have a lot of information about rapid breathing techniques and the benefits on my website. And the reason why they're so impactful is that when you start to breathe quickly in a safe way, it can be completely transformative. And by transformative, I mean it can make you immediately present of body sensation. So you kind of overcome that period of trying to learn to meditate. I highly recommend that you explore rapid breathing, and there's a lot on our website too. Do Yoga With Me has a tutorial section for breathing that shows you how to do a lot of the rapid breathing techniques. I even have pranayama for anxiety classes or tutorials on that page. The second thing would be to keep everything as simple as you possibly can. The tendency for someone who is anxious is to overthink, always overthink things and try to fix it through thinking about things. The best thing you can do is learn how to turn that off and just be present with your body, because that is the gateway to understanding.
It most certainly is. And most certainly is our gateway to being able to know ourselves. And I think that anxiety is trying to tell us something about ourselves. And if we can tune in and listen to that, what a gift. What a beautiful thing. So I'm excited for people to connect to you, and anybody who is suffering or knows somebody who is suffering from anxiety. And maybe you don't even know it's anxiety. Maybe you just think that you overthink and that your mind is just a racing kind of mind and you're always in 100 different places. If it feels like you are spinning out of control in that situation, or you don't have the tools to bring things back into a still center point, then I know that you connecting with David and the work that he's doing and focused upon is going to be beneficial for you. So dive into those links, connect to those tutorials. David, thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing all of your beautiful wisdom.
Thank you, Chris. I really enjoyed the conversation. That was great.